Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Hello and welcome to the show, your favorite weekly show, The Weekly Matters. Today we are discussing matters youth and all that pertains to it. With me on the show is Mohamed Arab Doyo, a communication specialist and a youth leader, Mohamed Ibrahim, a youth activist and a politician from Mandera, and Oscar Kimani, entrepreneur and a banker. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Thank you.
Like we said, the youth are the most energetic segment of the society. And I would like to start with you, Arab Doyo.
Yes.
And first of all, before you go deep into these issues,
Yes.
is the Kenyan youth potential tapped?
Well, from my perspective, what I can say is that the youth potential in this country largely remains untapped, because from all spectrum of the society in terms of economic development, in terms of social development, in terms of political development, you will realize most of the youths are in the back seat, and it's by design, because the policymakers and the people in charge have ensured that these people are left behind. Nonetheless, we have many other youths who've come out strongly and decided to take their positions, not by begging, not by invitation, but they've come in strongly and taken their rightful positions. Yes.
Now, talking of taking their rightful positions,
Yes.
what do you mean exactly? And as in how?
In terms of socio-political development, now, for instance, in Kenya currently, as we speak, we have at least 14 youthful members of parliament. We have young senators. We have young women reps. A few years back, it would be very difficult to get young people below the age of 35 playing a critical role in social, in issues to do with development in legislature and all other spheres of life. Yes, even at the county levels, you will see very many youths, very vibrant.
Now you're talking of Oscar.
Yeah.
Doyo is talking of youth, who are defying the odds to take their position.
Yeah.
Now, in reference to that, he has given us an example of youth who went to parliament against all odds. We can name names, but there is no need for it.
Yeah.
We know people who went against odds.
Yeah.
But, and again, he says the youth are being kept at the periphery, and it's by design.
Yeah.
Is it by design or by default? Because some will argue that the youth remain youth because some people have refused to retire.
Yeah. Okay, number one, let's create the setting very well to understand what youth is. Number one, youth is a transitional stage. No one is youth for life. It's not like women. But secondly, when you're discussing youth, you must realize, number one, if you're talking about 60 to 75% of this country being youth, that means you have to get away from the pyramid look of how many guys have defied the odds. You're dealing with the masses. The same way you deal with health. It's not how many guys can afford first-class health care. Is there health care for all?
Yes.
But third, when you're discussing youth development, you have to realize youth is about giving chances and opportunity for all. That means, just like time, is it possible for every young person with an idea to flourish? Is it possible for every young person to be in a place where they have what we call gainful and meaningful income? So in discussing the youth, we cannot look at the youth and how many few of us have made it. We are asking ourselves, every person who has been born, they are born as a young
talking
person.
of every youth having the chance to succeed,
exactly,
also comes in, brings in the issue of governance.
Exactly.
And youth being the majority.
Yeah.
Now the question goes to you. I have seen you on social media talking about issues of youth.
Yes.
Unfortunately, some of us see it as a way where you only lament after elections,
Yes.
and during elections, it's you guys who are at the forefront supporting what you are right now crying against. Now the question is, do youth, and he said that we should have, a conducive environment for them to grow.
Yeah.
When you guys are campaigning for these politicians,
Yes.
do you put that in the agenda, and why do you cry after the elections and not during when the issues are supposed to be addressed?
Yeah, this is generally not a question that's supposed to be directed to me alone, but it goes to every young Kenyan.
Yes.
I think we have a problem, a very big problem when it comes to choosing the right leaders. And we seem to be making the mistake every now and then. We don't learn from the past mistakes. That what they call, whenever the time for elections come, what we bring is that garbage in, garbage out thing. As far as I'm concerned, even though I have participated in politics and I've been actively involved, the issue of youth empowerment is neither here nor there. It's a farce. It's something that does
Why
not
do you say
exist.
it's a fuss? Why?
I really want to understand why you think
yeah.
it's a fuss.
Yeah, I will have to explain.
Okay.
It doesn't exist at all. And I will also like to disagree with Doyo, because at one point he said there are those who came out and forced themselves into, and fought for their positions, especially where he said some of them have asked for legislative positions and they got it. That one is totally...
He never said they asked for it. He said
They
they went against all odds to be where they are.
Yeah,
Yes.
they went against all odds.
Yes.
Let me tell you something about it. If you can recall,
Yes.
there was a discussion on how the young men and women, simply they call them the youth we have in Kenya today, have been called names like, being corrupt or ambitious by one of the dailies, if you can recall, people who are looking after tenders and so forth. You can recall that time. I don't know whether it was Standard that detailed that or it was Daily Nation. There were such issues. If you can recall, that one is not there. Through my experience, what I know is that there are very few with the connections who are tenderpreneurs in Kenya. And there are very few with the right connections who can make it to legislative positions in Kenya. Not all the youth have the same empowerment agenda.
Well, I think
Ahmed,
Yes.
the problem of how we deal with Kenyan youth is sitting on this panel. I look at youth always politically first. Remember, this country, we are 75% youth by age. That means 75% of workers in this country
Should be.
are youth,
Yes.
not should be are.
Yes.
If the police officer you're dealing on the streets, or the forest ranger you deal when you go for a trip, or the policeman who may help you somewhere, or the person who is cleaning your office is a young person. So the first thing you have to change is we have to stop looking at youth from a political eye. We must first look at them from an economic, social eye before political. Because as far as it's political, it's a tool. But the first question you asked about is the potential utilized. World Bank in the early 2000s, is when they brought that concept of the African youth, not just Kenyan,
Yes.
being a ticking time bomb. And a lot of interventions came across African governments by international donors to try and solve this problem. And the issue is this: can we look at this from being a problem that needs to be dealt with politically, and you reserve some few seats to be nominated and you feel like we've started this thing?
Yes.
The same you've been dealing with geothermal potential in this country.
Yes.
The same you've been trying to see how you can harness. I've seen a lot of projects to harness the potential in the sun to give us
even
energy
the
in the
wind in the
northeastern
north.
region,
Yes.
or Turkana,
Yes, yes.
or even here, Gong Hills. That is how you should look at the youth. These are potential. Actually, I can tell you, the way we are classified as having the most unutilized land in the world,
Yes.
as the African continent,
Yes.
the youth is the biggest potential even before land.
Now talking
So
of
as far as we
now,
change the look,
Yes. Now talking of big potential.
yeah,
And
maybe
since-
before
yes.
you'll allow me to interject.
Yes.
What, as Oscar has put it, okay, he has very valid points, but I want to clearly state that you cannot separate economic development from politics.
Yes.
And neither can you separate the role of youths in well-being,
yeah.
and you separate them from politics. Politics is the art of life.
Yeah.
It is what determines the policies that are applied economically and also socially.
Yeah.
So it starts at the top in terms of policy making, in terms of governance and all. So your point is very valid that we should not only focus on that,
On the
but
political side of
on the political side. But then I believe that all policies, all laws, everything around our society has the political angle towards it. And in Kenya specifically, politics is what determines what happens.
Now,
Actually, it's true.
now talking of
It's part of Vision 2030 actually.
now
It's a
talking of
pillar.
politics determining everything. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Kenyan youth have been called the leaders of tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have participated in the second liberation.
Yes.
They have participated in all the struggles this country has undergone through.
Mm.
Yet they are called leaders of tomorrow. So when will they lead?
No, we do not have any term like leaders of tomorrow. The youth of this country are leaders of today. Even the young person at the local level, as far as Mandera or as far as even Garissa, Lodwar, Kapenguri or any other place, the youth are playing critical roles in leadership roles, however small they are.
Yeah.
The argument that leaders, young people are leaders of tomorrow is a very selfish narrative. Why? Because the people who say that are the people currently occupying positions of opulence and
Yeah.
positions of policy making. They want to remain there and fix the youth into and box the youth into a certain corner and tell them, you people,
Exactly.
you are the leaders of tomorrow, just stay there and watch. You get me,
Yes.
Bwana Ahmed Kader?
Yes.
So my argument is youth are the leaders of today. Because if they, as Oscar said, control 75% of population, why should they be the leaders of tomorrow when the majority
yes,
is them?
now that begs
Yes.
the question.
Yeah.
And you will forgive me, I have a call today.
No. Forgive you, sir.
Yeah, sorry for that.
Yeah.
The question is, he said that 75% of the youth, we should look at everything from 75%,
Yeah.
like you said.
Yeah.
How comes we can't lead?
Okay.
Yet we are 75%.
You know, when the current, before my brother goes after me, when President Uhuru came to power, there was that quest to have a Ministry of Youth. But he categorically said, youth is not a marginalized group and needs representation.
Yes.
There is youth in everything. And though right now, then the current ministry where he falls is public service, youth and gender. But he was very right by saying, number one, youth is not a marginalized group. That's why we have to ask ourselves, how do we make, not just making the government or the country youth friendly, how do we make sure that any person who wants to get something done because they are youth, being young, is not a hindrance? And these things have worked. Huduma Center. He can be working in his office, an idea has come to his mind, he logs online, he uses M-Pesa, he pays for his new company, in a week, he has the thing sent to him. That is part of it.
But
Another example.
Mohammed thinks
Yeah.
that for you to make it as a youth, you have to be connected.
No, you don't have to be connected. That's the first thing you have to change because
Is that the fallacy he's talking
is
about?
a political narrative. You don't have to make
No,
it.
no, let me explain.
Unless
Let me
you're
explain it
discussing
clear for
making
Oscar.
it
Yes.
politically.
Oscar.
And remember, when you look at the pyramid,
Oscar.
before he corrects me,
Okay.
and you look at the pyramid, there's a 1% on top in the world. We're not dealing with the 1% on top. We're dealing with the majority where they're down here. So when you're looking at youth empowerment, or you're looking at youth in this country, let's not look at the shiners who are on top, what do you call the outliers, who are 1% of every society. But how do we make sure, because you're dealing as youth here, as a country, that's what you're discussing, right? We are discussing youth as a country. How do we make sure that from the 1% to the bulk who are like the 70%, that they're in a place where they can grow? And in this show, it looks like I'm the only one who is non-political here. I'll stick
Yes.
to empowerment.
No, I know you have always been unpolitical, but it's felt like he is saying.
Maybe,
Yes.
Ibrahim,
Let-
before,
let-
I know you will explain,
Yes.
but what Oscar is saying,
Yeah.
you know, I want, he's speaking about that President Uhuru said they're not marginalized. And when I started the show,
Yeah.
I said that it is by design, you see,
Yes.
and that is the same narrative
Yeah.
Ibrahim is saying.
Yeah.
It's not that it cannot happen. It has been made to be like that by the society that we operate in,
Yes.
by the government itself, by
By the
all the
government.
policy
Policy
makers.
makers.
Let me ask you, you see, by the age of 22, you complete university. You
Yeah.
need employment.
Yeah.
But you asked for 8 years experience.
Yeah.
You are asked of other previous...
I have to cut you
get-
short,
Yeah.
Doyo.
Yes.
I know we have a long time to discuss
Yeah.
on the issue of marginalization.
Yeah.
We have so many other things. We have to
I've
talk
not been
about
given the same.
we have to talk about the institutions that are mandated to run youth affairs in this country,
Yeah.
how they are being looted, and all those things. We have to discuss. We are going back for. We are going for a break. We'll be back.
Yeah, take
But
a
before
note.
we go for a break, I want to remind our viewers that we are also live on our social media platforms. on Facebook, Horizon TV Kenya, on Twitter, at Horizon TV Kenya, and myself at Ahmed Qadar1. Keep it here, we'll be back.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back to the show. We're discussing what ails the Kenyan youth, and with me as usual, we have been on the show with Mohamed Doyo, Arab Doyo, Mohamed Ibrahim, and Oscar Kimani, a banker entrepreneur. Before we went for break, we have been talking about youth marginalization.
I was explaining a point that was raised by Oscar, saying that when Uhuru came into power, he said that there's no need to create a youth ministry because the youth are not marginalized. Well, I think in the Kenya policy-making perspectives and all other sectors, there's issues of the marginalized groups. We have PWDs, persons living with disabilities,
Yes.
among women and among other groups. Yes, youths form 75% of the population, but they've been marginalized socially, economically,
And
politically
politically,
by
yes.
design.
Yes, by
You say
design.
by
That is a
design.
fact. Yeah.
By a lot of, let me pick one of the three. Economically, you need an employment position. But by the time you're completing school, you're 23 years, 22 at university.
Yeah.
But when you go apply for a job, the job requires, if you will make a decent sum, at least 7 to 8 years experience. This is by design, because where will
At a
you get
managerial level.
where will you get 8 years experience,
Yeah.
yet you are 23 years? By the time even
I saw someone on social media saying you add all your high school life and make it as an experience.
look at the retirement age.
But it was just a joke.
Look,
it was just a joke.
look at the retirement
Retirement
age.
age.
It has been pushed forward
Yes.
despite us having 75% population of youths. Look along all other issues. You'll realize that a young man is told that you cannot sit in the table of elders because you have no experience. So this is the
Now talking of
society's
experience,
making
but we are
by
appointing
design.
class 7
by
dropouts to
design.
cabinet.
You know,
In relation to that,
yes.
the Minister for Sports has not gone to high school. We all know that. And I saw you also talking about your social media.
Okay,
So
that is a different
yes.
case scenario. It happens in the society. But Rashid Mohammed is a very unique Kenyan.
Actually, it's an outline.
The rest of the Kenyans, it's very hard at his age
Yes.
to find him in a state office.
Yes.
He played a critical role in mobilizing, in political rallies, and he was of importance to the Jubilee rallies in where he
Western
comes from,
Yeah.
in Western. So he was rewarded.
Okay.
But not every youth can play such a critical
He's
role.
part of the
And even
1%.
if we,
Yeah, but you see now,
we should
if,
not even
Those with
forget.
the right connection.
We should not forget he was the
I used to
ODM
see
youth
him
leader.
at the
Yes.
right
He has
point.
experience
Yes.
as
Now-
an ODM youth
now,
leader.
Mohammed, if you allow me to, and on that basis,
Yes.
Doyo says, he worked for that position. There was a party, political activities. He was involved. He was rewarded. What message does that send to the Kenyan youth? Does it matter to go to school? Does it matter to work hard if you can drop and get a ministerial post?
No, it just simply means
Yes.
that you incline yourself to a certain political party
Yes.
and work hard towards making sure that the political party achieves something, even without necessarily going to a
Yes.
school or something, be a good mobilizer.
Yes.
That is basically what it means.
Uh-huh.
If you look at it from an angle, I'm not sure whether he has gone to school, whether he has gone to secondary. I don't know him. But I've heard about
No, it's not about him anyway.
I've
but
heard
we were
about the
discussing that
contentious
culture. Yes.
issues
He accepted.
surrounding
He's
the
a class
gentleman.
7.
Yeah, yes.
That he's a dropout and something like that.
Okay. Now,
I'm-
Oscar, I don't want us to talk too much about Rashid.
I
The
will
question is-
continue. I want to continue
Okay.
from where
Let's
I was.
give him a minute. Let's give him a minute.
Oscar and Doyle have been taking too
Yeah.
much time.
Yeah.
On the point of empowerment, and
Yes.
I want to go back
Yes, go back.
to this issue of empowerment and why I said it's a fuss. It's a fuss because this thing doesn't go beyond boardroom discussions and media discussions. It is not seen practically outside. It's the first because if you look at the policy, from the policy making point, what we have is that the government only does its things on paper. It's only done on paperwork. That there is empowerment and such kind of stuff that they do for the youth. But when you practically look at the outside, from the outside, and you look at every part of this country, across Kenya, the youth face a lot of challenges in some multiple odds. These are the problems, the real problems that the policymakers are supposed to address. And when we talk about the policymakers, we are not also going to forgive the politicians themselves, who actually are being part and parcel of making the policy formulation process, because they are legislative. They are taking a legislative role, which of course they fail most of the time. If there is a policy issue, a youth policy, do we even have one? There was a youth policy issue that was once put in place, if you can recall, the National Youth Council thing.
Yes.
And
I was with the youth. I was with the CEO of the Youth Council last show here on this.
I wish I was with him.
Yes,
because
he has explained so many things, but the point is, I get your point, Oscar. In reference to empowerment, Mohammed is saying everything is in paper and nothing goes outside there. Now, in relation to that, there's an agency called the Youth Fund.
Yeah.
And what's your take as far as youth empowerment in relation to the Youth Fund is concerned?
Okay. Number one, I would want to correct my brother. We are not there yet, but truly we are not where we started. We should accelerate, and I was today with a nominated member of parliament who represents the youth, Gideon Keter, and I challenged him the same thing that Adan is saying, and Mohammed is saying, that we need to accelerate. Number one, there are a number of policy interventions that have made it much better for the youth. Number one, I can tell you, we are one of the most tech governments in the region. And a big factor that makes a young person not get an opportunity is distance. Right now, if Mandera County government has a tender, and I've never been Mandera personally, I'll go to the website or to supplier, download, fill, send. You're getting it? So one of the things we're doing to make, the government is doing to make sure that the ground is much more better for the youth.
Now the question is,
I'm getting there. Okay. Coming down to the youth fund. The youth fund was well meant, but the operationalization of youth fund has been the problem. By the way, policies, the problem in this country is what we call operationalization. How do we get this nice thing to take off the ground and fly in the right direction? How do we have the state of the youth fund we have right now, knowing how many young guys are stuck with government tenders and they can't finance?
No.
The problem is operation. And last year there was a policy where youth fund, women fund, and all those youth funds are supposed to come together as a government and become like a government bank. But the problem is this, policy is signed.
Yes,
operationalization is a problem. No. And how do we do that? Last half a minute. How do you do that?
Yes.
Honorable Sakaja in the last parliament took a bill to parliament. 30% of procurement goes to youth, women, and people with disabilities. It is halfway there. But what is going to happen is yet to become a crime not to do it. In this country, if you don't file taxes, it's a crime.
Yes.
Isn't it?
So if you don't pay youth,
if you don't give 30% of your budget to young people,
yes, it should be a crime.
You need to answer.
Yes.
That is when we're talking about operationalization. This youth bank, can the president give a deadline? There are 42
but
banks.
But also, now, talking of that,
Yeah.
he says that, 30% of the should go to the youth, that if he has never if he has never been to Mandera, he can sit somewhere here, use his iPad and
download, fill, send.
How that tech, is it, we have seen, he says we are one of the most tech government. We may be, yes, but has that reduced, has it made things fair? Can you just apply tender through a computer and expect to be favorable?
Okay, I think his point is very strong. Yes. On the process. The process is simple, yes?
Yes.
Okay, the process and formalities and the bureaucracy of it is perfect. And all these end up in formality stages. His point was on technology. Yes, technology is great in this country, and it's not about government facilitating it. Technology in Kenya has been because of investors and coming in strongly. Then investors, then the youths and the people decided to go that route. I doubt the government would do a lot regarding that. But, as you said, application and all, I think it's still a farce. It's a far-fetched idea. It's a boardroom idea that 30% of tenders in this country go to youths. Some of these companies are only youths who have never even gone to school because of age issues, and they are used as proxies for these procurement jobs. Then even the jobs that are allocated to these marginalized groups, you will be so surprised. It's supply of newspapers, supply of tea leaves, supply. But then when you go to serious issues, it's allocated for, it's open. Open, and then a tender bid of 1 million. You know what that means technically? As a young person, you've been knocked out of the process technically. And then even in the tendering process, you are asked how many of such jobs you've worked for. You know, that means that as a young person, probably you've not even engaged in any business. You even do not have audited bank accounts in the first place.
I don't know.
So my
assuming
point,
you're given to do the road contract between Garissa and Mandera.
Yes.
By factor, and I hope I don't sound wrong. I wouldn't want the youth issue in Kenya to become what is so in South Africa. Where it was that 3% of your board members have to be young people. That means a person going there as a young person does not care about anything else other than by
qualification.
Remember,
you know what
right now, I'm 31.
Yes.
I have 4 more years of being called youth by government.
Yes.
Getting it?
Yes.
So the qualification we have to look at is not age first, it's ability. Because if you want the road in your village, I know your village from pictures, and I love the pictures. If you want that road done, do you want it given to somebody who can get it done? Or do you want to be given by somebody whose qualification is only age? That's what I'm saying. Of course.
Yes.
But you see, the issue is...
But also you have to...
Your example is far-fetched. It's extreme.
Yeah.
Your example is extreme. The supply of newspapers, supply of cleaning materials and all.
Computers.
I would say just give a bigger one. You get not like engineering and all, because this might require a lot of technical expertise and capacity. But what I am saying is, even for these small jobs, there is a way the government can support. For instance, in Singapore government, when Lee Kuan Yew, the founder of the state, was starting, he established a system whereby he gives you the capacity, the youth, and then you go somewhere, get the money. Then after doing the job, you return the money. You get? Even there is the financing bit and all the other. It's a system. You know, if you want it, the intention...
If you'll allow me to interject, my friend. On the empowerment issue, and still I would like to amplify what my brother has said. To me, I think this empowerment, however fast it may look, has also, it's also relative. What I see as empowerment may not be an empowerment to Oscar.
What I see as empowerment.
What those from Central Kenya see as empowerment will not be what Mandera guys want as an empowerment.
Exactly.
But there is one thing that the government should do on the policy making, at the policy making level. That they should mainstream youth activities.
And what this empowerment is.
In every ministry, youth activities have to be there. In every ministry, whether it's in agriculture, because there is that young man who sees empowerment as getting dirty, going to that farm and getting dirty.
But I think the 30% was about every about every ministry.
About every ministry,
yes. Every government institution, including a high school in your village. Including the high school in your village.
But what I see as an empowerment will look different to what Doyo or Oscar sees as an empowerment. Because there are those people who are searching for tenders. They see being given contracts is a form of empowerment. But there's that one who is looking for scholarship.
Exactly.
He wants to get a scholarship.
There's that one who wants to go from Central Kenya to Mandera and do business, who want to be given a nice environment.
Secure environment and work on the quarries.
Yes, they're there, and they're young people.
That is why empowerment...
And equality it's a form of business, it's a booming business in Mandera. That's why someone can live all the way from Nyeri, go to Mandera, and a decent earning. But unfortunately, he's let down by the system because there's no security. And it's not our problem to...
Now, finally, we agree.
I'm saying, if we
finally, we agree with my brothers.
If we want to address the youth agenda, let us look at it from a macroeconomic perspective, where it cuts a bigger percent of the population. Now, if we start talking about tenders, you'll be surprised the number of young people in Kenya who would probably even are aware that the 30% tender...
How many of our polytechnics are working today?
Now, these are the serious questions that we should ask that cut across the youth. You know, issues of training, capacity building,
Yes.
issues of schooling.
Finally, you agree
Technical
on yourself.
trainings.
Yes.
Most of the vocational training centers do not work.
Okay.
So what we require is when you give this guy the ability when you teach him how to fish,
Yeah.
rather than giving him a fish.
Yes.
Okay,
That-
hold it there.
that is
Hold
the
it there.
kind
Hold
of
it
empowerment
there.
we
Hold it
want
there. Hold
from
it
the
there.
government.
Hold it there. We'll be back. We are going for a short break. We'll be back as usual. Our social media accounts, we are live there at on Twitter at Horizon TV Kenya, on Facebook at Horizon TV Kenya again. Myself at Ahmed Qadar 1 at Arab Doyo. Your Twitter handle is what?
At Arab Doyo.
Your Twitter handle is
At Oscar Kimani.
at Oscar Kimani, and you
At Moha
at
Brainy.
Moha Brainy. Keep it there. We'll be back.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back to the show. As usual, I'm your host, Ahmed Qadar. We have been discussing issues of youth, what ails the Kenyan youth, and we are finally concluding with the panelists. Before we went for break, we were discussing about the 30% tenders and all this stuff. But there are institutions in this country that are specifically mandated to handle matters youth.
Yeah.
We are talking of the Wezo Fund, we are talking of the Youth Fund, we are talking of NYS. Yes. Unfortunately, today NYS has been trending, and I'm sure you guys are aware why it has been trending.
Yes.
So what last year, not last year, but the story came out last year, 180 million shillings of the Youth Fund just went missing. It's a public knowledge. It's something you and I know. It was in the papers. It was in the media. And unfortunately, no one has been taken in for that. What is your take?
Okay. I think first of all, as Kenyans, when matters corruption, I think we are not angry enough yet about corruption. And that is a fact. We talk about a billion like it's a bob. Until we ask ourselves, what can a billion do for a county? What can a billion do for Nairobi County? What can a billion do for the youth in Madera County? So number one, as Kenyans, I don't think we are angry enough. The day you become angry enough, it's something you sorted. The day you become angry enough, it's something you sorted. And I think for the government right now, it's a high time we stop playing around politics. Let's stop cracking jokes. We stop playing around. Even the president has to crack his whip, because this will be the biggest part of his legacy. I don't think he wants to be remembered that during his time is when worst form of economic crimes. These guys actually are worse than terrorists. They're economic terrorists. How can you carry all the money supposed to help young people in this country and goes one person's pocket? How can you just walk away with $1 billion? It's not a bob. So far as Kenyans, we are not angry enough. The day we become angry enough is something we sorted as Kenyans. Secondly, for the president, he has to crack his whip. Otherwise, the default legacy that may be left behind about this administration will be terrible.
Arab Doyo, you have been online today. I saw you commenting socially, as you always do.
Yes.
Your wisdom. The thing is, NYS has been trending today, and it's about youth, and we're discussing youth. Are you not enough angry? As
Well,
put it?
personally, I've learned to accept the peculiar side of the Kenyan masses. If 791 million gave us a governor, I think we have a presidential material with 9 million. Yes?
That's how we are not angry enough.
Yes,
Because
this
we
is
crack
right.
jokes.
Yes. Let's go.
We work from a system that it's not a joke. This is what is happening, Oscar.
Yeah.
If 791 million gave us a governor, 9 billion, you'd be surprised. The same people using the same money and going back to the voters, and they are elected. Yet we have institutions that should keep to ensure such people do not end up in political position but ending up in jail. But are they? Not. It's systematic. It's not about Kenyans being angry. It's about the leadership that Kenyan people have entrusted on to start cracking the whip. In Kenya, if impunity shall end, it shall end from
The top.
top-bottom approach,
Yeah.
not the other way around.
Now, talking of top-bottom approach, we have seen youth, funds being squandered, but we have not seen youth coming out to protest. As in, why are we not defending our resources? Yet we are the ones who are spinning the conversation online. When a certain minister or a certain personality is mentioned in scandals, we are used to trend funny hashtags and say, those. So
very nice question.
Yeah. So why are we not? Yet we are saying our money has been eaten. Why are we not seen?
Money being swindled. We are not seeing a
young man
coming out
or shouting about it.
Yeah.
Yes. Why?
The reason is simple. That until and unless we deal with ethnicity, my friend, we will not deal with corruption, even as a country. If we are to deal with corruption, we first have to deal with ethnicity. And we must bring punitive legislative approach. Unless we bring such kind of we start such kind of approach, we need a leader who can go to the parliament and bring a bill, for instance, that will once and for all stop end ethnicity and corruption. Because you say there's nobody who will come out today. If we try to come out and say so and so has to be dealt with or removed from office, then the same youth from his ethnic background will come out and start defending again. Yeah. This is the problem we have in Kenya.
Yes.
So we are divided along ethnic, and this has been historical, my friend.
Yeah.
This has been historical. Oscar,
So
before you continue with that, for us to end this scene, I think we need a legislative approach on how to deal with both ethnicity and then second corruption.
Okay.
People have been talking, and even professors and people have been talking about negative ethnicity. Ethnicity has to be generalized. We are either Kenyans or we remain divided for life.
An ill like corruption, we have to realize we will not solve it through a human intervention. Replacing leaders does not reduce corruption. We need structures of government. Let's ask ourselves. There was a girl on today's newspaper saying she doesn't have a company, she didn't tender, she did not supply, she doesn't know what she was supposed to supply, but she was paid. I mean, even as Section 1 auditor, CPA by CASNEB, can pull there's a problem in the audit trail. But as far as it's paper-based, that nonsense can pass. Right now, how comes right now when you're going to pay for your good conduct, you go online and pay? There's a paper, there's a trail. So the things we need to sort about corruption, the most annoying thing about the NYS problem, it's even a Section 1 from Strathmore University or from KCA University can pick the problem, isn't it?
So where do we go wrong? Where do we go wrong?
Number one, I'm saying is not human.
Oscar, before you go
institutional.
I think I want to kindly differ with you. Kenya has no shortage of structures. We have all the structures.
And
what we lack is the goodwill.
And the
we have all the structures. For instance,
Yeah.
we have the procurement department.
Yeah.
We have the chief executive officer, who is the accounting officer.
Yeah.
We have the procurement regulatory authority.
Yeah.
We have the office of the ombudsman.
Yeah.
We have committee of administrative justice.
Yes.
We have the office of the auditor general.
DPP,
we have ethics
auditor,
and anti-corruption
CID.
commission.
Control of
We have
budgets.
all these commissions. Yet corruption is continuing. Why? Because we lack the goodwill.
Let me
The
explain
goodwill
that.
to handle corruption in Kenya is not there. Institutions only work when there is goodwill to ensure these institutions and structures are operationalized and are working.
So let me ask you, why do we have ESCC? Why do you have CID? Why do we have Office of Special Crimes? Why do you have 4 or 5 institutions?
If I ask you a question,
let me explain.
why do they even exist?
That's what I'm going to say.
Yes.
Why do you have
Yes,
5
yes.
institutions of government investigating what needed just an electronic paper trail?
Yes.
Why do we have all that resource right now going through paperwork and yet an electronic? I work for a bank. I know what electronic paper trail is. When there's if you go to any system, if you go for any manufacturing system, if you go to anyone who's running, and like an example, an enterprise resource planning software. If somebody even logged in, right now if I go to my office at 7 p.m., they'll know I was in the office. So the issue is this. The institution is talking about are human-based institutions. You have set up a new committee. You have set up a new task force. We need institutions that are not human-based. Why are we having 5 institutions looking through paper trail when an electronic paper trail would have picked the gap so we're ahead? This person runs a company. Have they paid for PIN? Some time back, I worked for one of...
How
electronics
how
work
will
through
the
humans.
server-
They do
Yes.
not operate on their own.
But you know, you cannot...
But then,
but you
Oscar,
know,
look at it from
if you
this
don't have
point.
your company details,
Yes.
if you don't have your name is not in the people who tendered, this system cannot give you an LPO. If you go to a company that is running an ERP software, if one person has not approved, the final person cannot approve.
But
It's
see,
not
if-
saying-
If I
But
may
the
ask a
system-
question,
yes.
can you physically put the names of people who even did not tender in the system? Can you?
you can.
It's simple. That
But
is
you
the
know-
point. It's
but you
human
know-
driven.
But you know,
Now,
You know, at the end of the
because
day,
of time,
it's
we have
human.
to,
It's
because
the
of
good
time,
way.
that's one on our side. Abdoyo,
Yes.
Moha talked about, bringing a law of, to fight corruption and all these things.
Yes.
I mean, ethnicity, like you said.
Yes.
And you have the view that we have enough laws and enough
Yes.
structures in this country. We all need to implement and we all need the goodwill.
Yes.
Now, talking from that perspective,
Yes.
recently a law has been passed called cybercrime
Yes.
law.
Yes.
Some argue
Yes.
that there are people who are protecting themselves from the masses.
Yes.
Yeah, in the sense that, for example, if you talk about money that has been stolen, you'll be said, it's a fake news. And what is your take? Because we have, like you said, we have enough laws. What is your take on that law as we conclude in regards to how we should talk about NYS and all these corruptions? Are we being gagged? Is the general populace being gagged to talk about some things?
Well, I think the law was well intentioned, but it was created by the people who have zero understanding
Well
on
implemented.
how technology works.
Yes.
The intention is good,
Yes.
but they do not understand how the blogosphere and the technology sphere
Yes.
works.
Yes.
So they put it totally incorrectly. Because in Kenya, what we have, even the little sanity we have in this country, is
Yeah.
because of the little voices of the people who speak up against these issues.
Yeah.
But this law can be used,
To punish.
while it has its positive side, it can be used to punish. It's very punitive on people who speak ideas which are not politically correct. Things we are speaking here, some of them, some opinions we are raising, and we raise it through a bigger mass media, they would stop it, they would curtail it. So these laws, if implemented to the latter, they will also only advance impunity. I think we need to review them. Of course, there are those bad elements in the social media who kill people actually, who even extort and all those things. But you cannot separate freedom of expression from technology.
Yeah.
There is a thin line. You need to really...
Now, as we conclude,
Yeah.
this is a question I'm going to pose to every one of you.
Yes.
As you answer that, I also wanted to conclude,
Yeah.
because time is not on our side.
Yeah.
Will the Kenyan youth ever unshackle themselves from tribalism? I start with you as we go this way. And you answer that and you conclude for
To
us.
conclude. And number one is a conclusion. Number one, to deal with corruption, the president has one thing in his hands called e-procurement. It will solve for him. Number two, unshackling ourselves from ethnicity. You didn't care to check our ethnicity when you called us for this issue. Ethnicities come when all of us believe that there are not enough chances for all of us. It's a way of ticking you off. So what you just need to have is this: as far as you have enough food for the table, we'll not check who will come over and eat based on our skin color or our hair or our hate. The issue is this: let's get away from this concept that things to be good, they must be scarce. As far as you have enough for everyone, ethnicity never occurs. You never check the ethnicity of a conductor or the doctor or the supermarket attendant.
Unfortunately, it becomes an issue in some places.
Exactly.
Conclude for us, we have 1 minute. He has taken enough time, more than a minute, I think.
Yeah, let me be a little bit
You have no time.
optimistic about the issue of ethnicity. Let me just say, but I will not be surprised if this thing continues for centuries.
Okay.
Because I don't expect it to stop anytime soon.
Maybe in one sentence, I want to say that there will come a time ethnicity will go inevitably on its own. How? People will have so many problems that it will reach a point people will forget their vulnerabilities and they decide to unite just for a cause. It has happened all over the
I
world.
meant to put it
However long it takes,
Yeah.
of course it is gradual and it is in phases, and it is actually with a lot of factors. It has happened all over the world, and we have several case points which we can quote
Or
from.
The
better
show
we realize
is-
we have enough for everyone.
Yes, we have enough for everyone, and we hope that the youth of this country will one day overcome the issue of tribalism. They will one day see the beauty of everyone from every corner of this country, and we hope that the scandals that are prevailing in this country currently, the NYS and all these things, will be dealt with accordingly. And we, the youth of this nation, I'm sure, will give the president the support he needs to tackle the issues of corruption, especially corruption within the youth sector. And on that note, we are ending our show tonight, and we wish you a very good night. Bye.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.